I'm doing that because every time I try to get a open mic screenshot of me, I never get myself smiling. I'm always like this or like this. It's bad. It's just like, so everyone smile and look happy and gay and pretend I'm brilliant. Yes. Okay. There we go. Now I know next time I need an open mic screenshot, I know what to do. Thank you guys. Welcome to Stone Soup Poetry. It's another all open mic. This is an interesting week for me. And I mean, interesting like the Chinese curse, may you have a long and interesting life. But the DEF CON is now up down to, I say, 4 or 4.5. I had to go to the town hall meeting to discuss being near like a being whether our house was in a flood zone. We're not. We're near it, but it's the same. It's the same. It's basically the same area as. It's basically like if we do have that 1 in 1,000 storms, this is what will happen. This is what we have to do. And fun fact, the maps have not been updated since 1970, and the houses in the neighborhood we're in is like basically only like over a little over a decade old. So a lot of historic mapping going on in the world. They actually did it around the coast because obviously they care about the erosion and the docks and what to do with that. And then they said, let's do the rest of the land. So that kind of made me feel better because I've heard it said many a time for people who are concerned about where to move as things get sketchy is that Massachusetts is one of the very few states that's actually doing something about the erosion and flooding. They actually have one of the most progressive programs out there, I've been told several times. So, which is not to say I live near the ocean. I don't have a beach house, but I actually am near a nature center, so that's basically what we're looking at. But it was pretty educational. If you ever get a chance to go to city hall meetings, especially if they invite you, I recommend going, at least in Boston, because they have food there. They actually, and I'm so used to working for federal government, I forget that state government has all the goodies. Federal government, you don't get shit. If you get donuts, you have to buy them and pretend to give them to yourselves. But that's all I got for right now. The point is, because of that meeting, I had to skip Stone Soup yesterday, so we have Stone Soup now. And I'm still figuring out what to do about Juneteenth week. I don't know if I should have a feature on Juneteenth or have it on Thursday again. We do have a Dan Fior who's slated to come sometime in June. I'm going to figure that out if it's going to be next week or the week after. Dan Fior, if you don't know, is very prevalent on the Dead Man's Press Inc. Facebook group. You can see him post multiple poems. He actually has a book of a collection of poetry, I think, about his apartments. Um, Pretty interesting guy, definitely from the Bukowski School of Writing, and I thought he'd be a hell of a lot of fun, which is why I wanted to get him for this week. But then Calamity hit, so I do apologize for the June lineup. Hopefully, things are going to be better in July and August. And that's about it. I might have some bad news or some news about Boston Poetry Marathon. We're all gathering our wits and figuring out what's going on with that. But that's what I'm dealing with. But hopefully tomorrow's going to be a lot more mellow as I figure out how to keep my job for next year, and which actually isn't as hard as it seems. But the fact that I have to ask that question is something. But it's one of those times, but I'm glad I can go through this open mic. Thanks to everyone who is able to come. And I will say this too: the not Spoonful, the next anthology mini zine, Stone's Throw. Spoonful was actually the online journal for Stone Soup, and I might actually be putting out issue 7 someday because we have work dating back from 2011 that was submitted, but because of my everything going on at the time and me taking over Oddball, it was never published. So I'd love to publish that time capsule. But Stone's Throw is coming out with an issue called Unalive the Algorithm. Basically, our take on the internet and how it's failed us in numerous ways, from the social media to Elon Musk. If you want to write sonnets about Elon Musk, there, but for graces of God, go you. But if you think you can make it work for this issue, please do so and send it to me. My email is listed on the link that I put up on Stone Soup, and I'm going to pin that. And also, the artist for Stone Soup, David House, is putting out a print magazine It's local to Boston, but he really wants to put a print zine out. It's all basically based on word art. And Robert, your eyes should just go point point from this. It could be anything from typewriter art to wordplay to scripts, anything that has to do with words, even a word jumble. Anything you want to do. And I can tell Robert in his mind is just going like this.
Can you put the
So I
link
hope
in
you do.
the chat for that?
What's that?
Put the link in the chat for that.
The link is not there, but if you go to Stone Soup on the
Mhm.
page, there's an email to send it to. These are college kids. David House is who I know is a student at Mass Art, and he just really likes putting together print stuff. That is his thing. He's put together silkscreen zines. He's put together the zine Lion Zen, and now he's trying to do something with a specific theme. I'm trying to urge him and his partner to get a Linktree web page up. They want to put up Google Docs, but everything's happening so fast. And when you're an art school student trying to put together a zine in the wee hours in the printing room of Mass Art, and you're taking a class, things move slow, not at all, and then super fast. But I would like to support these kids because they do a lot of good work. I've
Well,
seen their stuff.
what's his name again? David.
David House.
Okay.
And like I
I'll
said, everything is on the zine, everything is on the Stone Soup Facebook page. And it's linked also to my blog as well, all the information you need. So that's what we're trying to do
yeah.
for our summer vacation. So I hope you guys submit, you're interested, and let's get to the open mic. Let's get to your words. I should shut the fuck up. And we should get to the first person. And let's welcome up someone who had a really good poem the last time he read here that I thought could have been for the zine, and I hope he submits. Let's welcome up Mr. Mark States.
Thank you so much. The Twisted Truth. Nana stands at the stove, wooden spoon in hand. Nothing stirring, just motionless and staring off into space. Quite unusual for her. I wondered if something was wrong from my seat at table and breakfast nook. So I asked. Just thinking, she says. What are you thinking about? The spoon resumes stirring. Nana turns and asks me to bring the pepper jar from the table to her. 3 or 4 shakes of pepper disappear into the pot, and then she tells me she was missing her friend who moved out of the neighborhood. The wooden spoon freezes again, and she looks in the general direction of the yellow, flowery half curtains at the kitchen window. I assume I had not met this friend because I did not recognize the name. So Grandma describes her to me, but still I shrug my shoulders and feel the mid-afternoon sun warm the back of my neck. Still not ringing a bell in my mind. So Grandma mentions her friend was the one with the one crooked tooth on top, right in the front. So whenever she smiled, everyone could see that one tooth turned 90 degrees with a small gap on either side, basically sideways. And she never seemed to care if anyone stared or didn't like it. Just the friendliest, most outgoing person Grandma knew. The light up a room when she enters it type of person. Well, for some reason I cannot remember, or maybe it wasn't stated, Nana's friend had to get dentures. And everyone else thought this was great because the woman could finally be rid of the twisted tooth and the gaps. Grandma's friend had the surgery, gets the dentures, and the upper denture has the gaps and the tooth twisted 90 degrees, just like the original. When I asked, why did she do that? Grandma's friend replied, well, at least as recounted to me, Dear, I've been looking at this smile in the mirror my whole life. Why should I change it? Nana smiles at the telling of this story in a manner I recognize as love and respect. She loved herself, crooked tooth and all, said, smiling to high heaven before resuming her duties in silence over the 4 stove burners. This is one of numerous stories my grandmother told to instill in me a respect for people the way they are. And I suppose a lesson to love myself the way I am too. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mark. Thank you, Mark. Thank you so much. Up next, let's bring up Marianne Honecker. Welcome.
Hello. I'll read 3, I think. The first is called My Descent into MECFS. Inanna, Queen of Heaven and Earth, felt compelled to enter the underworld to visit her sister, the Dark Queen, Ereshkigal. I am compelled to stay in a darkened room while the sun swells its surfeit of blooms. Sometimes I cover my face with a blanket. Everything is too loud, too bright, too alive. There are 7 checkpoints along the road to visit Ereshkigal, the other self of Inanna. At the first gate, Inanna surrendered her crown. I surrendered my chosen town. At the second gate, Inanna surrendered her beaded necklace. I surrendered the shape of my body. At the third gate, Inanna surrendered her breastplate. I surrendered my job. At the fourth gate, Inanna surrendered her golden ring. I surrendered my friends. At the fifth gate, Inanna surrendered her scepter of power. I surrendered my house. At the sixth gate, Inanna surrendered her royal robe. I surrendered my car. At the seventh gate, Inanna surrendered her measuring rod and line, her authority to govern. I surrendered the right to decide what to do with my present and future. Inanna stood before her dark self naked. I too stand alone, stand undone. Inanna was judged guilty. Her body was hung on a hook, so in the end she lost even that. My body is no longer my own. What crime I committed, I do not know. If Inanna and Ereshkigal are one great goddess, if they are the same being seen in 2 mirrors, if Ereshkigal is Inanna's shadow, then the goddess judged and found herself guilty. Did I do this to myself? Did I push myself too hard? Did I look in the mirror to find myself only night and no day? Ereshkigal recounted her sorrows. Then she gave Inanna back to herself. I don't know if I can excavate this properly. Is there a key, a phrase to unlock this illness? I am in the underworld now. I wait for myself to speak. Grief. There's a hole in the rock wall encasing my soul, and the wind shrieks through it with great force. It topples trees and rips off roofs. My power lines fall. All is darkness. Then I'm alone with grief, ugly with its eroding nose, exposed bones. It comes to me and touches me with its separating hands. The storm rumbles, floorboards shake, rain flattens my flowers. There's lightning in my mind, buzzing over my bare brain. Everything short circuits. Rain pounds down and floods me utterly. I'm drowning in the deluge. Then grief hands me the photos of all I did wrong, how I failed my loved one. And I think I'll stop there. Thanks.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Mary. Let's bring up next Miss Janro.
So this was suggested, it was suggested I write about my dad because this guy who worked at the Globe for 23 years and laid out the Sunday magazine. And Chad, maybe when you were doing your type of printing, my dad did the hot type. So he had 6 linotypes dropped in hot lead, and the machines went up and down by themselves like invisible typist. So a few years before my dad died in 92, during a trip home to southwestern Pennsylvania, we rented from Elmo's. Elmo's later moved to an empty synagogue and repointed it. So we rented Mat One and found out that my dad, as a toddler, had been evicted with his mother and his stepfather, Jesse Martin Rao, who struck as a coal miner. So my dad as a child and his parents were evicted by the Coal and Iron Police, composed a lot of New York thugs, and the 30% of the population that likes to be cruel. So anyway, my biological grandfather died age 22 TB. Well, anyway, in a recent Black Seed writing of May, my spouse in Curtains Away used one of my dad's favorites for Hysterical Society, which takes on added meaning now, which just happened with the Supremes at the Supreme Historical Dinner for 500. She got in. So for acute lead poisoning, my father was finally ambulanced to from the newspaper to the Brownsville General Hospital, still open then. And the newspaper was hours late that day. My brother said it was hours late all week, but I was living in Delaware at the time. So despite the lead poisoning, my dad loved being a printer. In fact, once he was walking back to work after lunch when the Pennsylvania hotel exploded with fatalities. And my dad didn't even turn around. Thank you.
Man, the places I used to work at never blow up. Damn it. That's why I need that one last look back, and all of a sudden, probably a Fight Club fantasy, but what do you got to do? Who's next? Who's next? Bill's next.
Why, I am deeply honored. I hope that you can hear me well. Obviously, I'm using a different computer from a different location and all of that stuff. So, am I audible reasonably so? Okay, great. That's wonderful for me and terrible for you because now you have to listen to me. Ah. Ahem. So, in slightly over a week, I shall be at Ripon College in Ripon, Wisconsin, where I'll be celebrating my 50th reunion with lots of other people, and I will be giving a toast for everybody at the dinner as we come in. And what kind of things do you want to talk about at a toast to the 50th reunion? Fellow member of the class of 1974, most honored and welcome faculty and guests. Here we are in our twilight of our lives. Who could have believed that we would be the ones who made it this far? What a miracle! As we look back at this time, it's common to ask, has life at Ripon really changed all that much? Have the experiences that we had been the experiences that students today have? Well, more or less. Ahem. Man on floor. All the freshman women would squeal and grab the sweaters which they were sent eternally drying between towels in the hallway and retreat to their rooms, locking their doors securely. And then someone would call out, "It's only Bill." And they'd all go back to drying their sweaters. Today's students couldn't understand, they couldn't imagine. Now, penning Mrs. Krupke into her room, not nice. Bad students, bad. Thursday nights and Sunday noons, we came dressed formally. We wore our uniforms. Everyone else wore dresses, coats, and ties. It was a little bit intimidating, but it felt so wonderful, so grown up. When I was teaching at Stanford and at Tufts, I would request my students to dress formally for their final presentations, and it felt wonderful. The Raiders were in the old gym. They were trying to execute an 8-man front-to-back toss. The lead man tossed the rifle a little bit too hard or a little bit too softly, and it couldn't be caught. The rifle landed on the floor, or should I say the rifle landed in the floor. The bayonet stuck 2 inches into the floorboards, and the rifle stood there straight up, vibrating wildly. And the Raiders continued their routine without any pause. I never doubted that they were real bayonets, but even so, those were real bayonets. Our company attacked a Vietnamese village a few miles out of Ripon in January. Charging across the crusted snow, firing our guns wildly at random. Out of the corner of my eye, I could see men beside me going down. I know they were just tripping on the crusted snow, but it lent a certain verisimilitude of reality to the exercise. Bird, my dear little avian companion. Can you believe that they let me raise a pigeon in my dorm room? I tossed him out the window as I did each morning, and he took a loop around the quad, checking the beauty of the morning, and then spotted some poor fellow on his way to class with a load of books under his arm. Bird just wanted to be friendly and tried to land on his head. Do you remember Jackie Vasselli and her guitar? She taught me everything I know about the fascinating witches who put the scintillating stitches in the breeches of the boys who put the powder on the nose of the ladies of the court of King Caractacus. Jackie and I took a philosophy of logic course together. Jackie Vasselli, will you marry me or not? At which point Jackie always responds, yes, Bill Lewis, I will marry you or not. The librarian, Bill Branch, and his family adopted me. Every time I visited Ripon, I would stay with them. I visited Mary a few months before she passed on. She was alert, happy, and content. I ran lights for the final performance of the old church/theater. The Bourgeoisie Gentilhomme, I think. I was running lights and someone kicked out the power plug and Bill Brenner finished his final line in darkness. Coach Stozer died and the football team won an impossible victory. That was our life. It was a beautiful time, my friends. And to this, I offer you a toast to the class of 1974. And everybody drinks wildly and jumps up and down on tables and yells and screams.
Thank you, Bill. Up next, let's bring up the stylings of Mr. Robert Fleming. Who I will give permissions to share the screen.
Thank you. Good evening. I'm Robert Fleming, a visual poet from Lewis, Delaware. Tonight, I will be asking the Stone Soup players to read another love scene from Gone with the Wind. In order to set the stage, I will show the photographs from the scene that this is inspired with. This is the scene where Scarlett and Rhett dance after Scarlett's first husband dies in the Civil War. The costumes for Gone with the Wind were created by Walter Plunkett. This is a black and white photo, and here is more expansive scene of the dance scene in color. The sets for the movie Gone with the Wind were created by William Cameron Menzies. The producer of the movie, David O. Selznick, said that Menzies' sets were so inventive that he created the word production designer for the sets of movies. And I'm going to put on the screen the section of the play that we're going to do tonight. It is the scene, probably the first love scene between Scarlett and Rhett in the movie. And I'm looking to cast with someone to play Rhett and someone to play Scarlett. Do I have any volunteers?
Why, I would be most pleased and charmed if you could see it in your kindness to accept me to play that part, my fine and gentle sir.
Which part is that?
Why, sir, are you telling me that you cannot tell from my attitude and my beautiful voice what kind of woman I represent? I am insulted.
So you will be Scarlett, the new widow.
Yes, sir. I have
Wonderful.
recently lost my wonderful husband.
Is James Van Loy going to be Rhett? Is that why the unmuting has happened?
Oh,
I would love that.
James, would you like to be Rhett? Would you like to be Rhett? I
I
would
was
love.
so hoping.
I can be Rhett. I can be Rhett.
Wonderful.
There we go.
So I will read the movie directions. It's a 2-shot, Rhett and Scarlett, couples forming behind them for the dance. So Rhett starts.
Well, we sort of shocked the Confederacy, Scarlett.
It's a little bit like running a blockade, isn't it?
It's worse. But I expect very fancy profit out of it.
Well, I don't care what you expect, and I don't care what they think. I am going to dance and dance. I wouldn't mind dancing tonight with Abe Lincoln himself.
As the reel starts, the scene dissolves to a long shot of the waltzers on the floor. Then the camera moves to Rhett and Scarlett as a close-up.
You're the most beautiful dancer I've ever held in my arms.
Right, just a moment, I've got to get coquettish here. Oh, Captain Butler, You shouldn't hold me so close. I'll be mad if you do.
Red holds her even closer and whirls her around. Then there is a medium shot where the dancers are waltzing. The shot moves to a close shot just with Red and Scarlet dancing.
Another dance, and my reputation shall be lost forever.
If you've enough courage, you can do without a reputation.
Oh, you do talk scandalous.
A long shot, dancers on the floor. Then the camera, a low setup. Moving to a close two-shot, Red and Scarlet.
You do dance divinely, Captain Butler.
Don't start flirting with me. I'm not one of your plantation beaux. I want more than flirting from you.
What do you want?
I'll tell you, Scarlett O'Hara, if you'll take that Southern Belle simper off your face.
She drops her expression and looks at him, embarrassed.
Someday I want you to say to me the words I heard you say to Ashley Wilkins.
Oh, oh, oh.
I love
She
you.
looks.
Yeah.
Scarlet, aghast at his brazen attack and at the revelation of his interest, narrows her eyes. When she realizes that at last she has the upper hand over this man whose insults she has been unable to cope with in their 2 mornings.
2 meetings, and I'm trying to really have my eyes narrowing. Can you see I have narrow eyes? Oh, it is
Yes,
really.
that's beautiful. That's beautiful, Scarlet.
That is something you'll never hear from me, Rip Butler, as long as you live.
And then the scene dissolves, and that's the end of that first love scene in the movie between Rhett and Scarlet. Thank you from the Stone Soup players.
They are the Stone Soup players. Robert is the director. I guess technically, to quote Bill Hicks, I'm a producer now. Okay, so we are moving on, and hopefully moving on with Jeff Taylor, who joined us, and hopefully he has a poem for us if he's able to share. If he's just listening, that's cool too.
Yeah, I'm on the listening mode today.
Oh, okay. So let's see what we got here. Looks like everyone's joining who wants to join. We do have some people listening in on the live feed via Facebook. And of course, this reading will be showing up tomorrow on YouTube proper, hopefully before 9. I don't know because I've never had to get the video out and do the Stone Soup Crouton poem simultaneously. We'll see how that feed goes. This is been writing some weird stuff lately. I'll join in on the open mic this once, just to making sure. Oh, it looks like we do have someone joining us. But I'll start reading while she collects herself. This one was from the feature with Brad Valerie Loveland, the Stone Soup Crouton, which is based off of the writings of the feature and everyone on the open mic. It was called How to Remove Blood. Because you asked. First, the clothing, the body needs to agree to be purged. Be good or not. Keep it in basement with others too broken to vote or count. Pen application via ChatGPT, never too obsolete to wipe off someone else's shit. Never elevated again where jumping can kill you. No street musicians interrupted. Your grief is inside Schrodinger's box, both not existing and easy to ignore. There's no you, only other, and you came to learn about how to remove blood. Maybe yours, maybe the last person you encountered. Police reports hold answers. Then there's that job you won't want but will get. Work for tips to buy a matchbook. Your tracks are now phosphorus. We'll know if you skip a shift. Burn your clothes, bury self. Divide body among multiple spots. Man, woman, no one helps. We said we'd make the blood go away, not clean you. Now, recover on your own. And with that, let's make sure there's no one else joining, and let's bring us now to next to Jackie Chow.
Oh, okay, hi. All right. Are we supposed to read 2 poems at a time?
Well, you do 2
Or
short,
one?
short poems. You can do 1 to 2 poems because I know yours are short on the shorter side, but we're gonna have a second round too, so stick around.
Okay, great, wonderful. Sorry for being late.
No problem.
Okay, got it. Oh, all right. Okay, I'll read a short poem and then maybe some haiku. Okay, this poem is called The Stone Mirror. The mirror on the wall is too objective. There's no softening of stiff cheeks, no smoothing of lines formed over time, just gray reflections under the flickering light. It's nothing like my doting mother, to whom I will always be the reddest apple in the sack. Her presence replaced by the cold gaze of the silver pane. The looking glass will never give back more than it takes in. Okay, I'm not gonna read haiku, I'm gonna read another short one. And in the second round, maybe read a new sonnet. The second poem I'm gonna read is called The Raven. A raven's croak interrupts my thoughts on my morning walk. I look up at the bird, at its coat of the blackest feathers, shining in whitish sunlight. If only I could get one sound from this world, not to say an agreement. So I hold dear the dark bird's song, a redemption of an ill-spent hour on the empty grass. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Jackie. And now we close round 1 of the round robin with Mr. James Van Looy. Read his column out now. It's all one thing at oddballmagazine.com.
Yes, thank you, Chad. So I have a poem here called Sensitive. My mom always said, even my skin was so sensitive, so fair, so white. It was this defining characteristic, so I resented the very implication of it. But it was the family story nonetheless, and she was right, of course, just like always. But then 7 decades later, I realized, yes, I was the sensitive one. Got so sick when we moved to a new city to live on busy street, just up the truck route where the drawbridge stopped traffic for all the leaded gasoline vehicles, to stand in line, engines running in front of our house, in which I got so sick, I ended up going at both ends, rushed to hospital, while my brother's not so very sensitive, I guess, both ended up with allergic reaction to all those car fumes, using floor steamer to moisturize the same air that almost killed me, but which I escaped to hospital. Well, now the evil policy, neo-colonial imperialism just wrecks one country after another and can never even see the consequence of its own hateful actions. And brothers are sure I'm too sensitive again about the long-term effects of lead on us all, not to mention the full spectrum dominance our country has been our whole life long. And here's a song to go with it. Once I built a tower right up to the sun, out of brick and mortar and lye. Once I built a tower, but now it's done. Brother, can you spare a dime? Once I built a railroad, I made it run. I made it race against time. Once I built a railroad, but now it's done. Brother, can you spare a dime? Once in khaki suits, gee, we look swell, full of that Yankee doodly dum. A million pair of boots went slogging through hell. Brother, can you spare a dime? So don't you remember you called me Al? It was Al all the time. Say, don't you remember I was your pal? Brother, can you spare a dime? So that's E.Y. Harburg. Wrote that in 1932. It was on Hollywood. It was on Broadway, actually, in one of the shows. Thank you. 1932.
Thank you, James. And with that, we go back to start, pass go, collect 200. And we begin again with Mr. Mark States.
Help! My idea has been sound bitten and cannot get explained. The digitized voice is no longer alive. Emotion has been auto-tuned out of existence. Who speaks now but the media, telling us what to believe and how to feel? Maybe the robot will dance for me too, standing in front of the stereo, so long as it's not also pushing a vacuum. Sharing music was easier when it did not involve exchanging earwax. You might think you're playing a record, but it's the music industry playing you. On this floor, I wish the words were meant and not just lip-synced. Click here, purchase now, click there, back to list. We no longer communicate. We only destroy another's comment to the delight of our fellow conspirators. Or it's easier to tweet your way into trouble than out of it. When we browse, we close our eyes to the details being seen about us and sold in bulk to companies who want to change our opinions, like parents tickling babies to the point of torture, crying, screaming, and throwing away our votes. Recommendations from your browser, recommendations from your contacts and friends. I can see Russia from my Windows 10. Click here to read this article. Click there to read more than one paragraph. Click again to say no thanks to joining the newsletter. Click one more again to unleash your fusillade of expletives. If we really want to understand ourselves, what motivates us? What moves us beyond our desires and routines? No therapist is needed. Cambridge Analytica will tell you everything you need to know about you. Expanding your mind and blowing your brains out are not the same thing. People who listened to this poem also liked blah, blah, blah.
Thank you, Mark. And let's go back to Marion Honecker.
Considering a photo with MECFS. In the photo, light confettis the water. Individual beams can be seen slanting over the mountains. One can estimate the height and placement of the sun above Earth's slightly slowing spin. I took the photo with a flip phone from a rowboat in the steady surging of the New River toward the huddled town of Hinton. I was on the water, could smell its clean thunderstorm smell. I could smell the sated bank grasses, the bark and leaf of every tree, the wet earth, and hear frogs corral for the soft slipperiness of it, so good to settle into and sing. I saw a heron and a lift of butterflies sashaying skyward all at once, like a burst of birds from a tree. It's all in the past now. Being somewhere and seeing the where, smelling the ripeness of it. I'm captive in this house like a fish in a tank. Whatever sustenance life drops in will have to do. I remember those I loved or liked or simply became used to, memories that will gather no more layers of use. I'm stuck like a bug in a web, cocooned in my bed, waiting for my illness to drain me dry. It's a little stacked. Burn it down. My sanity, what's left of my virtue, my promises, my future. See this field of goldenrod? I walked a narrow path through its gilded acres as a girl. It's one of the last places I took my maternal grandmother. I often found turtles wading through the jewels. Drop your cigarette there. Burn it all night until the brittle dawn divulges ashes. 2 charred bodies, yours and mine, interwoven, crowned with wild weeds. The forensic team is baffled. The saliva on the cigarette is yours. Did they light it, then lie down in it? Yes. That's all. Thanks.
Thank you, Mary. And I'd like to bring it back now to Jan Rowe, who is there. She is there.
Go ahead.
This is called Private Jet. The Boeing CEO just retired with $33 million, despite the worst ever safety year for Boeing. Now, Clarence Thomas and Samuel Alito, they did not know hedge funder Paul Singer. It used to be Vulture Capitalist, and now it's Venture. I found today Toys R Us. So you know the Toys R Us, Payless, and Red. No, it's a restaurant. Red something. They all went out because these vulture capitalists want to get 20%. Anyway, okay. So Paul Singer, vulture venture capitalist, he had a lawsuit. The Supreme said they didn't know about it because he got bonds bargain basement prices when Argentina collapsed, and he wanted some money on it. So no loan there, and then they accepted a private jet to fishing in Alaska. But we got to thank Extinction Rebellion because they occupied the airport in Amsterdam. And let us remember that that airport was under, it was a lake. Okay. Thank you, water engineers. And still, if we could lose a lot of the Netherlands if it keeps it up. So, so thank you for bringing about the private jet of Bruce to our attention. You know, Boeing, Boeing, Boeing. I just saw the Blues brothers do rawhide. Well, anyway,
Yeah.
so it's like this. If the CEOs of Boeing, forget this private jet stuff that Walsh started with GE or whatever. So if the upper management of Boeing rides its jets, they'll get a better safety record, most likely. Who knows? They might even retreat from those exemptions they want. They want exemptions on de-icing. They want exemptions on flap problems and stall problems. I forget the fourth one. It's in another journal. So there won't be any more wall panels blowing out, ripping off a passenger's clothes. It's a good thing he had the seatbelt on, or he could have been sucked out. Hey, however, an iPhone got sucked out and it still worked once it hit. Okay, so so we're still doing warmongering, but the big exception is the rich are being taxed less and they still want to do we can't afford all this bombing. It's like this country's like on a crack or crystal meth pipe, hitting it. Meanwhile, I saw some Boston police crush one. Well, that's all that. I'm there. Thank you.
Thank you, Jan. Back up again. Toast roast master himself, Bill Lewis.
What ho, Tom Bombadil? Pom Domdabil. Damn, that's hard to pronounce. What ho, Tom Bombadil? Tom Bombadil. What ho? There, I can do that. Remember Tom Bombadil? Oh, the Lord of the Rings in there. He was, I don't know, a giant or a
And
cool
they never
dude.
they never put him in the movies, so people might not know.
What?
He's been deemed unadaptable.
Well, not to be really disrespectful, but fuck the movies. If they're gonna dump, no, Tom Bombadil, if they're gonna dump my favorite character, I don't care. I'm not watching any of those losers. Ah, now you've upset me, and now I'm discombobulated. It's all somebody else's fault. Somebody else's fault. There must be somebody who can blame for it. I'm looking for someone to blame. Nope, nope. I'm very sorry. Help me. I will take care of you if you truly are in need. I can make a space where you can sleep in relative privacy. And then we'll find a job for you. It hardly matters what, just so you're in the world out there working with people, so you're doing your part. No, I need a private room where I can be alone, and vegan is my choice of food. I must cook on my own. I cannot work a job, you see, for people kind of frighten me, on top of which I don't have time. I'm an artist. I'm a genius. People need what is mine. I heard she found a hovel where her welfare check suffices. Her poetic rants are bitter now when left to her own devices. Oh.
Thank you, Bill. Oh, we're back now with Mr. Robert Fleming.
Good evening, I'm Robert Fleming, and I'm going to share a little bit of the background of my last publication in Oddball magazine. It was inspired by a fashion designer, which was one of my favorites in the 1980s, who no longer is working. The clothes designer was called Daniel Axel, and this is an example of the type of shirt and neckline that he created. This is an example of the type of pants and shirt combination that he created. And my piece was also inspired by my love of the Carol Burnett character, her maid. The Carol Burnett show aired on television between 1967 and 1978. And this was my collage on an Oddball. It's called Drag Maid. And one of the saddest points in my life was when I realized that I would never be able to fit into those shorts again. I believe the waist on those shorts were either a 30-inch or a 32, and I was able to get into them until I was about in my 30s, and I realized in my 40s I would never be able to get into those shorts again, and gave them away, and I cried. It was a very sad moment. The other piece, which I'm going to share, was inspired by the movie One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, which starred Jack Nicholson, and the villain in the movie was Nurse Ratched, which who the star was Louise Fletcher. Right around when Louise died, I created a false competition, a nurse competition finalist of who is the real Nurse Ratched. And I have done a comedy sketch of Nurse Ratched for many years. I have two short comedy sketches, about a minute to 2 minutes each. One is on temperature taking, and the other one is on medicine administration. And then this is the collage that I did of myself as Nurse Ratched. Thank you for letting me share my two inspired drag characters, one as a maid and one as a nurse.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Fleming. Getting close to the end. Still sad, but I'm glad I was able to get a Stone Soup open mic together on such short notice. Let's do. I inserted myself into this open mic as I'm apt to do when it's slower. Let's see what I got here. And these are the times when I can't find my own blog on here. Oh, here we go. Here we go. Sorry for the dead air. All my poems have been weird this last month. This one's called Mapping Drama, and this was from last week's open mic. People in glass houses invite poor friends over, dare them to wreak havoc before you say how many times average rent their domicile costs the polish. Our biggest abusers come with tans glowing even without sun backdrop. Explain pain is customary, always turn into ogre by Act 3. Musical numbers distract you from blood. Victims always die off screen. Never see body through a windshield. Elephant in room already mounted, even if crows come for latest Denmark before paintings and cutlery are saved. It's a journey you can relate to because we've all taken it, right? That was a strange one to put together. Let's move over to Jackie Chow, our second to last on this second round of the final round, the final countdown
Okay,
of the round.
okay. All right, let me get the poem up. Okay, this is a poem and the prompt was why what is your why? And it's called 14 Reasons Why. Today I am challenged to write a poem about my purpose in life. I envision filling the pristine white with strokes as sharp as the marks of a knife. Not a single word tenants the page. The paper stares at me menacingly. At this wooden desk, I've come of age. Who wants to know about the plain old me? As I sit here pondering my own worth, unable to notice any progress, I have already contributed to this earth. My struggle is part of the process. Feeling inadequate as a poet, this poem was written before I knew it. Okay, now I'm gonna read some haiku. Newly submitted haiku. Summer diary, a pressed rose marks the day I turned pretty. Summer mountains, the lofty goals we set in group therapy. Thank you.
Thank you, Jackie. And now this brings us to our closer for the night. Mr. James Van Looy will round out one more time, maybe a little poem, maybe a little song. Thank you so much, James.
Okay, thank you. So I have a poem here called Another Lugubrious Poem.
Oh, yeah.
Sweet William I Never Knew. When I finally learned his name and began to use it in passing, it seemed a quick dart of the shadow of a cloud wisped across the bright white of his false teeth and chewing tobacco smile, as if I crossed a boundary I should have crossed earlier or not crossed at all. I had no idea he was even ill, or after these many months of years, he had finally had a room of his own and was actually helping others who had even less than Lily himself had. Just a tiny little guy, way past working to support himself, if in fact he was ever capable, or perhaps better, mean enough to wrench a living from life. All I saw was someone who always had a smile for me, as if I was the only special person around, and we had known each other forever. And we probably had known each other a long, enduring time, because, after all, the young man who came to Sunday soup and sandwiches did seek me out to confide how he had feared Bill was murdered, and was driven to find out how Bill actually died quietly in bed. His own bed, I thought. How fit, but sad, that he only got a place to die in it. But it helped this youth, struggling to keep his own pace, who had had his electricity turned off and needed a place to plug in and have a bit of light. A young man who'd finally found a sort of father he'd never had, and yet through his morning anger, could see what had been kept alive and passed on. And here's a quick Dutch song. Vrede is further than ooit, so dik by house, rusten the wapens nooit. Wat hath the angst met ons gedaan? Let alles wat adem in vrede bestaan. Alles wat adem in vrede bestaan. Maakt, speelt met maakt, en dood het spel. Bang voor elkaar, dragen ze met de hel. Leer nu of nooit samen te gaan. Let alles wat adem in vrede bestaan. Alles wat ademt in vrede bestaan. Let all that breathes rest in peace. Thank you.
And just as I thought we were done, we have Richard Spizak who's coming in, and I hope he's able to unmute himself and maybe we can see him, or is he just a ghost here?
Hold on 1 second. There we go. There we go. I had to confirm that, yes, it's being recorded, and I would be honored, sir, to read to this wonderful ensemble.
We were just
Give me
we were
one
just about closing the round robin, but let's hear your let's hear a few poems from you to finish up. That would be fantastic.
You're very generous, as always, as always. Okay, here we go. In the year of 2024, I'm going to go with this brief one first, and then something a little more. This is called La Magica de la Musica. Transformation of the beats, soaring melodies can't compete, taking rhythms with license to your feet, of the singing, winging, rising heights, so sweet. We could rise and soar with Mozart, but you acquainted with his music know that. With Jacobin, there is a groove that opens your wings for sure. You've seen it when you sing it, when you move. Syncopated rhythms lift your feet, joyous dancing makes your life complete. Bongos, congas, timbales will loosen your groove and send you fly away. Guitarras, flautas, brass trombones, lift your heart up to the throne. For the chorus, lend your voice within your soul, make a joyful noise. And then one of my newer favorites, this is called The Uses of Humor. You know, many people are very serious. We have serious political issues ahead. The world is in turmoil. And I say, the uses of humor. When it's said, or you suspect that all your plans are gone and wrecked, and when you're sad, mad, glad, parenthetically had, or simply by something evil or not quite bad, you may stutter and stammer too when you're in a jam, do you? Reach at length for something potent like a ducal region or a simply missing museum docent. Grab a hold of something rash, say, I'm not talking bags of cash or sitting cross-legged smoking bowls of pungent Turkish hash, or some such spice that makes your pleasure soar or roar down gleaming canyons slick as glacier ice. I'm suggesting, insisting that you measure another dollop out, and when you whisper or you shout, grab yourself a hearty laugh, sure you'll cut your woes in half. Cut them, splice them, mince them, very, drown them in a steaming cup of berry, pull their leg and tug their hair, you might find a generous touch of merriment there. And when they've got you in a boxer, the holes have worn through both shoes and socks, lean right back and give a chuckle, though it might bend your strongest buckle. All these things so tough and stringy, no more than a pretty propeller on your beanie, or a small mustache painted over that picture of the mastodon. Give yourself a hearty laugh, and sure by the clover in your garden, you'll cut your woes in half. I leave you, my friends, with The Uses of Humor. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Richard. And
I'm
with that,
honored, sir.
with two round robins gone and Richard doing enough work to do 3 rounds in a round robin, that was fun. I appreciate that. And we're gonna sign off for tonight and hopefully have more announcements for next week. Will we have another Thursday night gathering because of Juneteenth? Will we read on Juneteenth? Who will our features be? That'll be announced soon enough.
Langston Hughes.
Yeah, oh God. Well, let's keep within budget and limits of science. Thank you guys very much for coming tonight. Hopefully more will be coming. Check out the submissions, the submission opportunities at Stone Soup Poetry on via the Facebook page. I posted 3 of them. One of them is from a college group who are looking for various items of word art. They describe it as best they can. That doesn't have a web page, but the other 2 submission opportunities do. And of course, Stone's Throw is coming out with the Unalive the Algorithm issue. I've already gotten a submission today. And I have one from Richard already before I even sent the call out. So things are happening. We're going to have a fun summer, whether summer intends us to or not. Thank you guys very much. And let's do the obligatory wave as I try and get my head fully in on the shot. Feels like parts of it is being cut out, or is that just my hair? Have yourselves a great evening, and we'll see you next time. The show's over. Go bye-bye and have a good night.